Hello, everyone. My name is Bartek, and I am maintainer of Thanos. We have a couple of maintainers here of the Thanos project, and today is our first public meeting of maintainers and a community meeting. I might think this meeting will be a bit different than other community meetings I was attending to, like, for example, Prometheus community meeting, Prometheus ecosystem. We have like Cortex and Loki has community meetings. I feel like those meetings were mostly were focused on announcements. I feel like we as a Thanos team, we really have huge backlog of things to decide and to kind of share knowledge between active developers, not only maintainers, but actually everyone who actively contribute to the code. So we would love to focus those meetings on such areas, right? Such things that are blocked, pending, and needed some decision. And we'll put announcements to the Prometheus ecosystem community meeting rather. I think that would be the idea. Does it make sense? Any comments on that? Cool. So first, let's start with the we have lots of items in the agenda. So we are thinking about some kind of voting, which item would be the most interesting one. Do you think that makes sense, or can we make it all? What do you think? Any opinions?
We have like an hour, right? So it's like 20 items, something like that. I think we can try to make it.
Cool. Let's try. Okay, Lucas. Can you like quickly go through the all the release, like 0.12.2? I don't know if it was kind of long ago, but not sure if we if we need to kind of repeat that. We talked about that on the Prometheus ecosystem meeting.
Yeah.
But maybe it's worth to mention the latest. So I think I'm not sure if you remember or not. I can leave that, Lucas.
Yeah. So we can just talk about like the last patch release from 0.12, right? And specifically, like here we fixed two bugs that we had seen in the whole like 12 series. So actually for like the last month and a half. One of them was a change that we introduced that was with the external web prefix. And this was breaking something in the ruler UI. So this is fixed now. So this means that like the reload endpoint on the ruler works. And then the other thing that was actually causing issues was something in the compactor where this was a bug with how we were marking old blocks for deletion. And this has been fixed as well in 12.2. But those were kind of the only two real PRs that we've merged in the latest release. And I think since then, everything in 12 was pretty stable, which meant we could move on to the 13 finally.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, just to make sure, like I think this patch was kind of important because there are lots of S3 or like bucket operations going on because of the bug. Otherwise, everything was fine. Just the bucket operations were super painful and significant. So make sure to update on this. Any questions to that? Cool. So let's move to the 0.13 RC. So this is what's supposed to be, well, what was scheduled today to start the first release candidate for 13. And we have, again, huge backlog of changes, of improvements. Notably, I think we did a good job on kind of fixing the duplication bug that was, on very rare cases of counter resets in a very specifically replica configuration. There were like missed counter resets, so you could see a spike if you run the duplication on runtime, the duplication on the querier. We found it finally with the help of the Ben from GitLab, who was like giving us the data that was reproducing this. While we are there, I'm kind of also focus on kind of optimizations here and there. So for example, if you have store APIs that gives us the same data, because you have Prometheus and you have store gateway, so they kind of fetch the data, which sometimes overlaps. We were just kind of ignoring this fact and deduplicating by sample and sample, which is kind of inefficient. So now I'm adding logic, which should be in the 0.13 as well, that kind of deduplicates this on chunk level. So it should be also faster in those cases. So overall, this is looking great, and I'm super happy with that, because this work also will unblock offline deduplication someday for those cases. And another important kind of change in this release would be the multi-DSDB that Frederic was working on. So this is essentially the last item on the receiver kind of checklist for production grade kind of stage, let's say. So with this, once this is stable, we will, I think we are ready to mark the receiver production ready. I think we have still kind of issues right now with this. There's like some memory leak, and I think that's it. So this is why I think we should decide if we are okay to delay at least maybe, not maybe weeks, but with a couple of days the release if needed, because multi-DSDB is kind of important part, and then it's hard to revert even in the code. So what do you think? Is the code okay or not? Generally, we should not delay releases, but what's your opinion?
I think it's fine if we delay. I don't mind.
If we will delay that's more than a week, then we can kind of recheck this, but I think up to a week should be fine, in my opinion. But because the goal is nice to allow people to have multi-DSDB, and already users are asking how they can use that. Cool.
Any other opinions? I guess
Silence means we are fine. Yeah. Cool. Furthermore, we have, if we are going through the agenda step by step, we have backfilling. So this is interesting part. So we were talking a lot about backfilling on the Prometheus side. We were trying to unblock the backfilling cases, different use cases of backfilling essentially. And right now, backfilling is totally possible with vertical compaction, right? In both Thanos and Prometheus. It's not very easy to use. That's why we are thinking about some use cases, right? And how to improve the APIs essentially. And there was a huge discussion on the Prometheus. We agreed that we should have some data import kind of tools that will import CSV file, or maybe open metrics file, or maybe JSON file, and just kind of inject that into the database of Prometheus. This will totally work with Thanos as well, because the format is exactly the same. This is one thing. Second thing is rule retrospective re-evaluation, or how to call it. And this is something that will be tackled hopefully with the community bridge program on Prometheus side. This again will totally kind of work for Thanos as well. So this is great. And there's another point, like it was very highly suggested that we would enable backfilling through remote read, from a remote write. So you can imagine cases where you have a cluster that accumulated all data and want to send them after a week to the Thanos receiver, right? And within the vertical compaction, this is already kind of possible. Like we need to kind of add certain logic to open another DSDB, write the block and flash it and whatever, but like it's totally achievable, right? So this does not really relate to the Prometheus, because Prometheus does not receive remote write. However, we could enable that in Thanos, and the question is obviously from the user side if this is really necessary or needed, but also from development maintainer side if we want to enable this. So what would be your thoughts? Yeah, and your
So
opinion is welcome.
yeah, I have an opinion. So I would definitely want that. Basically, my simple use case is basically bad job sending writing to remote write directly. That's like, because right now you have that I forgot how it's called. Basically, right now Prometheus solves this by creating a new component, and you basically have wrong timestamps. You have timestamps of scrapes instead of timestamps of the actual metric you want to send. So for example, my use case like that I would use in my company is basically bad jobs would write metrics directly to remote write. Any other opinions?
Come on, don't be shy, guys.
One use case which I currently don't have, but which I had in the past, was monitoring a little bit remote sites, and sometimes the network would go down because you only had one link. And after some time, the system comes back, and then everything would be sent back into Zabbix for us to look at and to actually see what was happening. How can we avoid this in the future? Maybe do some analysis of the root causes. Blah 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 blah. So it was an unplanned backfilling, but it was not a one-off backfilling. It was again and again when the system started speaking again. And as far as I understand, it's currently planned to do this more like a one-off backfilling. But I think it's inevitable that at some point more and more users will also ask for continuous or more often backfilling. And at that point, we're basically at the old discussion of, well, if the user is willing to invest the resources and willing to take the service impact, if there is a service impact, then we shouldn't artificially prevent the user from doing this. So I think both from my experience and also from prediction, it will not be possible to do it just once or to have one-off backfills. It will start to become a more and more continuous thing. Maybe not fully live, but as a continuous or returning batch job, I'm certain it will happen.
Cool, thank you.
Fully agree, Richie, and also that's, even if it's a bad job, even if it's a one-off job, it will be a long running to even backfill all of this. So it's kind of continuous anyway because it's long running. So definitely a good point. Okay, adding some people around. We have Marco and Peter now. Okay, one question. So Marco, Peter, you are just arrived, but actually the question is around backfilling and if we should kind of support backfilling on remote write on the receiver side, or kind of in any kind of remote write backend, if it should kind of support backfilling. So my question is, so it looks like we are kind of tending to agree that Thanos would be nice to accept it. I would say it would probably accept it in rare cases for now. It will be not optimized and etc. But maybe we should accept it. But the question is for Cortex, like, are you guys going to have backfilling feature, or do you have today, or go time?
We don't have it today. But yeah, it's a feature we are also very interested into, but we haven't shared much thoughts internally about the backfilling, how it could work. So I was very interested into this discussion, but primarily to hear your opinion or your thoughts, then sharing it, because on our side we didn't even started trying to design it.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, we do have a tool that does retroactive rule persistence, but it's like a custom tool that directly writes to the DB instead of an API.
Awesome. That's actually a good point, because since we are kind of will be working on retroactive rules, if you can share any thoughts or like what you learned because of this tool would be nice.
Yep. So this,
for example.
Yep. So we haven't run this at scale yet. Like, we have the tool and we've run small ones, but we haven't run it at scale. But it basically runs the PromQL queries, creates a chunk, a Cortex chunk, and throws it into Bigtable. But again, it's very database specific.
Yeah, definitely. Just quickly to kind of inject like the thought, how would I solve it quickly right now in Thanos? And it could be totally similar in Cortex ingester, I think. So since we already have in Thanos, Thanos receiver multi-TSDB, so we do multi-tenancy by multiple TSDB spin up, which I think is exactly the same on ingester, on Cortex ingester. And the idea would be that if you have like the oldest, kind of older sample coming in, that the block was already cut for this TSDB, you just open a new TSDB, right? And write small, very small, tiny block even, flush it, whatever, and then let vertical compaction to take care of it. And it's super simple and not much work. And that would be my idea. It won't be very efficient, I agree, but again, we would aim for inefficient, rare cases, right?
I guess it depends how much data is expected to be backfilled. Like if you're offering the storage as a service and a large customer wants to migrate this data, we may talk about terabyte of data to transfer. So I'm not super sure that inefficient way to build it may actually cover all use cases.
Agree, definitely. But it is some start. I guess with some limits, we can have some baby steps like this, maybe. But a good point. Cool. Okay, looks like we have some kind of consensus on this one, at least from Povilas and me and Marco. Like, I guess, would you be okay, Marco, for example, to like have some POC on this on Thanos side, like any, I don't know, support or maintenance burden we are afraid of? I think it would be nice to have some task for this.
Yeah.
Any other opinion, question?
Actually, this solution also covers another case, which is the problem we currently have in Cortex, which fills under the backfilling issue, which basically is if Cortex, when it runs the block storage, is down, let's say for more or less 1 hour. Right now, we are not able to ingest older samples. So when Prometheus tried to catch up, while with this simple solution of opening parallel TSDBs, actually could solve the problem.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of the same thing. Perfect. Cool. Makes sense. Super nice. Okay, let's move on. Do we have Gidrius? I don't think so. Maybe some update on the GSOC. I think we have 2 GSOC students that started their work. So please, as developers, maintainers, and contributors, help them if you can and review. I think Prem is working on the React UI. So we plan to have UI on literally every Thanos component, which should be kind of consistent. We are building on top of Prometheus UI, in fact, and we plan to kind of add some additions to the existing UIs. For example, block viewer in a React with some functionality additions and so on. So it will be easier to debug things in Thanos. So I think Prem is doing good work already around that. And we have also Harshita. She will be working actually on deletions. So that's super awesome as well. So please welcome them and let's help them as well if needed. Cool. Any questions on that?
So because we need deletions in Cortex also, do you have a design doc for deletions already up, or is that something that you're going to start?
we're going to start, but the idea is that we have just deletion endpoint without even tombstones. So just this and deletion endpoint, we hope to be the same kind of API as the Prometheus. The question is how we kind of how we maintain and persist this kind of long-running job of even, I don't know, how we maintain this information to do this deletion per compaction, because that would be the idea. Yeah, I don't think we have really clear end solution figured out, but the minimum goal would be for Harshita to have a deletion endpoint, maybe even as a standalone tool that will just rewrite blocks, right?
Okay. Yeah. So just to give you a little context, we have deletion support in Cortex, but it's a little more advanced. So you issue a delete endpoint, and then we create a tombstone and we start filtering data, and we give users the option to undelete their deletes for 24 hours.
Nice.
This is because like the deletions API is not super clear and people might delete too much, and we give them the chance to kind of fix their mistakes. Nice. But yeah, looking forward to the design doc.
That's a good point. So let me actually bring another point maybe above that we wanted to talk today, which is backup mode. So instead of like allowing undone, we thought about just backing up. Like the object store is super cheap, so it should be just very easy to just back up this block, and because everything is immutable. So that's actually a good topic to talk maybe now. So I think this makes sense for deletes. That's my opinion. Like, especially like if you have similar logic in Cortex, but for 24 hours. Whoa, makes sense for. I'm so bad at making notes and talking at the same time. Yeah, makes sense on deletes and rewrites. However, well, rewrites because of deletes. But some people are talking and suggesting to have deletions or like backup for all compactions as well, which is very kind of, I don't know, like silly from my side, because you duplicate lots of data because those compactions are working the same thing. So I don't think that this makes sense. I would rather avoid that and have backup only for like very deletion kind of retention maybe, things like that. And the kind of the suggestion was because of vertical compaction can be tricky, and I agree. So maybe vertical compaction should also be backed up. So anything where we lose data or like potentially lose data because of the duplication or because of retention or because of deletion series, right? Any thoughts? Any opinions?
Yep, that makes sense. As long as we can give users a way to restore data, that should be fine.
Perfect, cool. And the undelete on Cortex side, is it how it is done? Like essentially the deletion is delayed, or?
So yeah, so we write a tombstone and we start filtering data, and we actually start cleaning up data like 24 hours plus 5 minutes later. So for 24 hours, they have the option to undelete the tombstone.
Okay. How do you solve the problem of someone deleting one series over 2 years of data, and then even creating a tombstone everywhere? Is that we don't have blocks, I guess, but
yeah,
if you like even creation and like scheduling those tombstone can be like 1 hour job.
not so. Like in our case, the tombstone is the delete request itself, and in the queries, we store all these pending delete requests in memory, and then we just filter the data if the data matches the delete request. So we don't even care about series IDs. We just say, okay, these labels have been deleted from time 1 to time 2.
Yeah. Okay, but then it's not persisted
So,
anywhere, right?
like we persist to big table, to a deletes table, and then we keep on updating in memory.
Okay. Nice. Okay, so there is definitely some need for consistency.
What happens if I write 10 million deletes? I have 10 million time series and I write 10 million deletes, one for every time series, or maybe I overlap in time or something.
Yeah, good question. Like, we don't have limits yet, but probably we'll keep some limits. And this is an API that we don't want to expose to users. Like, if a user wants to delete data, that's a super rare thing. So they talk to us, and then our team actually runs the delete command. So we have some gating. Yeah.
So it's manual a bit.
But deletes are rare enough that it's fine so far.
Cool. Yeah, it's very tricky subject, but given the backup, I would be very kind of comfortable. Like if people mess up, then it's easy to recover. Nice, good point. This is like very useful for Harshita work, I guess. Perfect, nice. Let's move on. Cool. Okay, this is like a short one. Like, Ivan, are you here? You should be.
Yep, I'm here. Is it short one? I was preparing speech, like, you know, for 30 minutes. But, okay. So I can kick off this one, yeah, if you want me to.
Please.
So that's that might seem a little bit unrelated topic, but it is actually quite important for any open source tool. It's about scalability of community and how support is scalable across growing community in Thanos. So I'm not a maintainer. I'm a regular user of Thanos, and community played a really important role for myself. I asked tremendous amount of questions in Slack and got help a year ago, probably mostly from Bartek. And at some point I noticed that he was the only dude who actually answered my questions, my newbie questions there. And I was like, yeah, guy, do you have life or something? And apparently he didn't have much life. And it is not really scalable thing. And I guess it kind of a thing about all of you guys as maintainers here. You are probably the most active users in Slack of your open source tools that you support. And it's all about, yeah, the community is growing. The amount of people who are providing support, public support, stays relatively static or is not growing at the same pace as community is. So one day I came up with an idea of cheering up people who come into public Slack of Thanos and helping other people to grow, not to grow, but to adopt Thanos with their newbie questions. Yeah, for a few weeks or a couple of months, I've been doing this by going through Slack every Friday. I was collecting Slack tokens of people who are helping other people and not maintainers. And Bartek would post a cheering up message thanking those people. But it is also not scalable because at some point I got tired of doing that. That's quite tedious work to do every Friday, especially after a couple of beers. So yeah, the suggestion here, we need to introduce some rules about cheering up the community, people who spend their time helping other in public sources like GitHub issues or community Slack, CNCF Slack. Any proposals welcome. So the obvious ones, we might send merch t-shirts to heroes of the month, the most active users. Once a year, maybe tickets for PromCon, depending on, I don't know, sponsorship, if we get some from, you know, companies backing up this stuff like Red Hat. I heard those guys have some money. So yeah, things like that. And probably Friday shootouts should be a thing. We need to give some publicity to that. But we also need to have a schedule of people who does that, because I try to do it alone. Not the most pleasant thing to be busy with. Maybe once a month I could do this. if a couple of folks would join me, would be awesome.
Maybe like we can script this, like have a Slack bot or whatever who would actually count the, I don't know, months.
I mean, yeah, that was an idea, but then if you look at in the Slack channel, you see that, well, it's not all about people asking questions. It's not all about people answering questions. So then you need to go manually over all the Slack tokens and see who is actually who, what did they do. So, you know, to make it actually the data consistency.
So I have a lot of thoughts around this topic.
Please.
This is super nice, Richie. Tell us.
So first of all, forget any automation. You just can't. The only way where you can start scaling out is if you start taking common issues and common stuff and starting to create FAQ or how-tos or whatever based on recurring stuff, and then encouraging people to actually link to those instead of replying to questions. To basically already set a certain expectations that if you ask something which is common, that you only get the canned reply, but not because you're all evil, but simply because that's how time scales. The next thing is it definitely makes sense to sorry, brain reset. It definitely makes sense to validate people who help, but you can't automate this either. But obviously, you can maybe send some sticker packs. Maybe you can send a T-shirt. Maybe you can make a raffle for a certain conference. Maybe Red Hat conference. Maybe we can talk about for PromCon for next year or something. That's the next point. And then you basically, when you have people who are willing to help, retain those people. Of course, they are very, very few. Like you have the usual ones, and they tend to pop up in a lot of different places. But it's always the same kind of people, and always the same people who do this type of thankless work. So just accept that it will not be a lot of people, and you will not be able to scale out indefinitely. But you can, for example, say same as we are currently on a community call, you can also have a call where you answer questions together, and it's not one single person. Everyone does their thing, but you're in a call, and if you need help or you're not certain, you can just talk with the others, or even you don't talk for an hour and you just all do your work and your stuff, and then you hang up. But you didn't do it alone. You had others who helped you with it. So those are all things which tend to work well. Anything which is automated or something tends not to work well unless it's documentation, but then still you have many people who won't read that documentation. So maybe you need to encourage people to read the document about asking good questions and such. And then you will always have the confused people, and you will always have the people who basically demand what is professional services just from the community. And there you just need to be somewhat positive and friendly, but consistent and firm in, hey, this is beyond what we can do as part of community. Or, hey, you're really confused, you're really doing it wrong, please stop or go away. That shouldn't be the first thing, but it should also explicitly be allowed and okay to go that route, because that gives the people who are helping the emotional safety to be able to say, well, it's too much, I will not deal with this, period. Sorry for the long monologue.
Yeah, talking about automation, we are in CNCF Slack, right? And
Yeah.
Slack requires some permissions to add bots or applications or whatever. Is it something doable or not?
Yeah, definitely you can ask if anything is needed to be at any integration if you have that in mind.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
right.
again, if automation doesn't work, then what's the point?
Yeah, well, it can help, right? At least we can list out the messages that people that were constantly replying, and we can manually review that instead of scrolling. That's already some improvement. But anyway, I just want to say even that you know the action that we had like 1 year ago, that was, I think, where we were doing those shout out Fridays. People loved that, and like it was so small thing, but it was making, you know, our community I don't know, much nicer and friendlier, and people get some shout out and yeah, like we are definitely grateful that we have so many people helping. And you know, right now we have 1,000 people on the Slack channel, and literally no question is unanswered, even though we are not maintainers always looking on that. So I think making sure those people are recognized, it's definitely super useful. So the question is, do we need any action item to make that happen more regularly?
Yeah, we need
Yeah,
volunteers.
my proposal would be to actually just like kind of like at the beginning of this meeting or something, as it's like from people for people kind of, and we could do the automation part, but like I think most of us are in the Slack channels, so it's kind of like people propose others who would be like the people to put up for this, and then essentially we just have like 3-4 names or something, and then either we do a vote or like some other means to decide who kind of gets a shout out, and kind of like just do this at the very top of the meeting. And then it's still like we could automate things, we could like support our decision maybe, but in the end I think it's from humans for humans, so I wouldn't stress it too much, and just having it in this like on the agenda keeps us like remembering that we need to do it.
Definitely, that's a good idea. I think, yeah, let people like propose a person for like kudos, shout out, thank you. I don't think we need to choose any winner. We can just, you know, get shout out to those people essentially, and have some stickers, swag, and whatever t-shirts ready. And no, I love that idea. The question is like, what would be the platform? Like, how can anyone propose?
It might be a little bit Slack/comments, little Slack bot /Thanos kudo, and Slack token of a person, and that's it. Like,
Yeah, something
if
like that would be nice.
Yeah.
You know, this is kind of good idea. Yeah, this will take essentially the effort of us scrolling by.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Let's look it up. I'm pretty sure there is Slack app for that. I'm definitely sure there should be some beer giver app or something like that. Okay, let's have an action item to research this. How to set up this kind of platform and set up, and then we can agree if it's weekly or monthly. What do you think?
I think it shall be weekly thing, because just, I don't know, to remind people more often that to give those shout outs more often, give positive vibes to the community more often. Once a month is not enough, in my opinion.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Let's move on. We have lots of items. That was super useful topic, and it's very small thing that most of the projects just don't have time to focus on that, but like it gives huge benefit to have a friendly community on the Slack channel, maybe even, right? Anyway, good stuff. Let's move on. Povilas, do you want to?
Yeah. So basically, right now we have, I think, Rule Federation basically design proposal has landed, which means we are adding new API, which is like rules API, which you can hit and get all the rules back. And then like, I think on Thanos query side, we will like dedupe the rules, and we will have like one consistent UI, which will show all the rules from all the leaf nodes. So now we have this interesting issue, basically, that basically previously we did star API discovery via star SD flags, and basically we would only discover star APIs, and we have this new rule API type. And the question, it's more for maintainers, is whether we actually generalize that to target service discovery. Does rule API has its own service discovery? What do we do? So
Yeah, I think let's also mention that this is like the pattern that we want to follow for other APIs. So essentially what we did, we have the store API, which is for metrics, fetching metrics from the leaves of the whole hierarchy of connections, whatever with the gRPC. We added a rules API. So now let's say if some of the backends of the store API's backend have the rules as well. So think of, you know, sidecar have rules because it is connected with Prometheus. So it fetches the rules from Prometheus. Now ruler have rules obviously and alerts because it's ruler, and that's it. And querier will also expose ruler to merge those, to proxy those. So those are three components. So as you can see, there is some pattern that there is store API, there is a rules API, which is kind of optional. And now the idea is that, you know, any store API can also be a rules API, but not all store APIs are rules APIs. So, and I think your question is like from the configuration standpoint and deployment as well, do we want to support case of just rules API without store API? Right?
Yeah.
Any I don't know, questions, opinions on that? My thought is that that's totally possible. That should be totally possible, and it makes a configuration bit weirder because we need again another dash dash rules on top of dash dash stores, whatever, which we already kind of have. However, because of this rule of rules API have to be subset of all store APIs, it's a bit easier to maintain. If we make it a standalone rules API server, it is totally doable. I mean, it would make configuration more complex.
Yeah,
From my side,
I think another approach we had discussed is basically info endpoint returning what types of things API supports, right?
yeah. So essentially, the discovery, right? Should we continue to go with the explicit path of having a configuration flag that will tell you, hey, this endpoint is store API, rules API, and some other API, and this endpoint is only store API, and this whatever, versus the kind of discovery part where you put an endpoint and it will discover automatically what APIs these are, right? This is right. This is very, very important decision to make from the architectural kind of point of view. So automatic discovery versus explicit configuration, which is very tricky to configure because you need to have lots of flags and like it's kind of difficult. Any opinion on that? Anyone? Do you kind of understand the problem? Any questions? Any follow-up? Come on, don't be shy.
So for example, my approach would be like to have targets API, which would be generic, and then start like info endpoint could return the type. For example, I support metrics, I support rules. This part
implementation is easy. It's rather how we agree on stuff, because implementation is, we can implement the reflection gRPC. So gRPC, if you call this reflection endpoint, it will actually, or like it will enable this reflection. gRPC will tell you what APIs are supported, right? So this is kind of simple. Now, you know, the question is what we want. And I want to avoid a situation when you cannot configure your, let's say, ruler to, you have a ruler and you don't want to, I don't know, expose rules API, right? With this kind of automatic discovery, you will get immediately store API and rules API discovered, and you have no way to disable it unless you have some configuration on the store API, rules API level, so on the ruler level. Maybe that will solve this problem, and maybe we are too worried about those edge case. Okay, if there are no thoughts, then let's think about it more. I think we are tending into automatic rather. right? Do you agree?
Yep.
I would tend to yeah, move more into automatic and easier configuration.
Cool.
Any
The next, sorry?
Yeah, go on. Let's move on.
So yeah, let's move on. I think the next one is also from me. So basically, we've been running Thanos with Customize as a sort of package, which is open source. My question is more to the communities. Does anyone want a Thanos Customize package? Is there anyone using Customize? Cool, because, yeah.
There are many. I mean, I know a couple. Maybe not on this call, but I think it's kind of popular nowadays. Matthias, maybe you know more how Customize is it popular?
I'm using Customize for my personal projects right now.
Cool. Yeah. So our approach is what? Like right now we have like a Helm community project in community repo. I guess Thanos Customize could be there too. What do we think?
Sure. I mean, if we have the Helm project there, then why not have a customized one? But no strong opinion. Like I won't use it, so
yeah.
Kind of others need to step up on that.
Yeah, my only worry is that kind of there is a Helm chart customized, and now we are talking about Docker Compose. And those are very small bits, right? The Docker Compose is just one YAML or something like that, right? Or it's actually very tricky because Customize is like templating for Kubernetes, and Docker Compose is just another orchestrator. So maybe there is, you know, JSONnet for Docker Compose chart, or maybe chart node, because it's also it's very kind of mess.
It's funny because like for like the small project I've been working on over the past couple of years, which is the alert manager bot, I actually started like last week, like a week ago, essentially have like high level configuration objects, almost like the Helm values YAML, and then take that to have like specific implementations with JSONnet. So essentially what that means is you specify the image, you specify different like, I don't know, like labels or like a namespace, which is more Kubernetes specific, but then simply ignored by Docker Compose, for example. And you specify these things, and then you like actually take that like higher level object, almost like, as I said, the Helm values file, and then from that generate Docker Compose and Kubernetes. And that like successfully worked in my case. So I was kind of thinking doing something similar for Kubernetes, which would in turn mean we could theoretically actually generate a Helm chart, like the templates, and we could do something similar for Customize or Docker Compose. It's still somewhat restricted where like we can't really, I think, like that would be like kind of like string like templating again. Like do like Go templates with JSONnet, which is also kind of overkill. We kind of done a similar thing with OpenShift templates, sadly, internally, and that was just so meta. But yeah, there are definitely approaches, or we could like kind of like say, okay, we do have JSONnet if you want to have like super like high dynamically like not dynamically, but if you want to have like a lot of choices to do like different things and extend, then use JSONnet. But like we can at least like guarantee some sort of like high quality generated Helm chart, which should get you like up and running with the 80% use case. Like that's something I was just like personally thinking about. It's not that I'm kind of proposing it here, but like there are means and ways to kind of like take this higher level object and like trickle it down into all the different implementations.
Yeah, but I think like from Tana's perspective, I think we agreed on Helm community project and like actually other people to maintain, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that would like not really like follow that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like not everyone wants to write JSONnet. So
I mean, yeah, like the idea would be that at least like let's say the stateful set or something like that would be shared, like would be written once in JSONnet, and then it would just trickle down as kind of a like YAML file or like Go template, which like has bare minimum Go templating inside the YAML file. Again, right? I mean, as I said, like it almost like was too meta for OpenShift templates, which we were required to use internally. And like I know all the pain points around that, so I'm not saying we should at least do it for like for Helm. It's probably too much, and if we already have people maintaining that, we could look into doing it for Customize, because Customize is basically plain YAML and a bunch of patching on top of it. So that like we're doing this for Prometheus, for example. We literally just like generate everything YAML, and then we just have like 1 or 2 specific files to customize, for example. And then we can reshare the same underlying implementation.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm happy to discuss.
Yeah, that's a good point. But like, you know, we need to, the problem would be that it will be limited, as you say, and it would be hard to contribute to this, right? There might be experts in Helm charts, experts in Customize, and they will be blocked because they don't know JSONnet, and it will be on us. Whereas we could move this work to the community who really cares of best, you know, kind of best practices experts based charts or Customize or Docker Compose, right? So there is a trade-off here. Yeah, good point.
I mean, in turn, it kind of means that they have like more freedom to do kind of what they think is the right thing in terms of Helm or Customize or whatever, but it comes at the cost of maybe us going somewhere like a bit more like
not
like
in our area
or in detail, right? Like we can really like write the manifest as intended to be used with like the components specifically written in mind, and that would like not maybe translate too well into like someone who isn't as familiar with custom like with the manifests.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, I don't know if I
Okay.
got the point across. Anyway.
Yeah, so I think we are not decided. So to be honest, we have like 3 minutes left, and I really would like to talk about the community questions, which is like Spencer should be online. So we are kind of want to move forward with the community Helm charts, which is kind of unrelated note. So Spencer, like, is there anything that you wish we could do as a maintainers to, because you are super active. So thank you for even kind of doing this. But yeah, how we can enable and review, help, and do anything to unblock this I don't know, process.
I think your mic is not working.
Yep, we cannot hear you.
I can maybe share something from a different community call. Helm charts have the problem that most people just want to consume them and no one wants to build them. So by definition, the people asking for them are usually the ones who do not want to or cannot build it, which is not an actual solution. It's just an observation which makes it easier to maybe talk about potential approaches, because it tends to be something which people just want to consume. So it's unlikely that the type of person who wants to get those Helm charts will be a person who's able or willing to make them. So it's probably on the maintainers if they want to have Helm charts, or maybe ask CNCF if EHOR can take some time, like if CNCF can assign resources. But
Nice.
Between those two, forget it.
I disagree, Richie, with you. I'm pretty sure
Good.
community can do that totally fine. And we already see, I don't know, 5 people who really wants to contribute, who were previously did 5 different Helm charts. So they're super passionate. So I want to kind of direct this to this effort. Let's see, maybe we'll fail.
I love being wrong. No, I mean it, like that's good.
Yeah, Spencer, maybe you enable your microphone on. Nope, okay. Feel free to, oh yeah,
He's right.
So Spencer is saying, I'm happy to lead Helm charts, but want to take over all the control without any else input broken. Yes, that's the idea. So generally, let's motivate people to take part in it. I've seen many people involved already, but like it needs some probably like manual on the Slack channel, right? I think what we can help, like I think you added lots of, we have lots of suggestions on the document, so let's look through them right now. Right now, like offline, and then I will try to talk to people who are initially interested, just to check if they are still interested. And then as an action item for this week would be nice to give those people access to the repo, so things can move forward without kind of strict maintenance of control from maintainer side. So it will be you, Spencer, for sure, but I know there are people from the Banzai Cloud, from even, I don't remember companies, but like there are many. So let's get people motivated, because that's what you are blocked on probably. And let's try it, despite Richie has different opinion. And Xiang is happy to contribute, looks like. So yeah, let's talk about that offline. Let's create a Slack channel. I was thinking about that as well, about just Thanos Helm chart community project, and let's have like focused discussion there. That would be nice action item maybe. Any last questions? And then we will wrap up. Cool.
Thank you for hosting, Bartek.
What?
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you for attending. No, it was super nice to have you all in this public community meeting of Thanos. Please give more input, don't be shy, suggest more things. I think there is some anonymous persons suggesting stuff, so we can comment on that offline. Thank you for that. It would be nice if you would say who you are and we can talk to you on Slack. Can you maybe put this thing on the Google Doc or somewhere? But otherwise, thank you for all the inputs, super useful, especially on the shout out Friday thingies. I'm super excited about that, and backfilling. Anyway, let's compose some recording of that, publish it. Thanks Povilas for taking this. Maybe some quick TLDR of what we decided would be nice. I can prepare that, and see you next month. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.